All right, well, welcome. Thanks, everybody, for making the journey out. And as David mentioned, the core of my DNA and my passion is profitability. So I know what it takes and what it means to your business to come out of the business for a few days and join us. So I can't tell you how much I greatly appreciate you doing so. Now, we started the day at a somewhat high level there, with very good insight and understanding into what we're focusing on and what we're actively driving for the second half of our fiscal year. And what I want to do with my time is actually drill in a little bit deeper and start to share with you a little more context around where I see our most successful partners going, and provide some best practices and some learnings from my 12 and a half years here at Microsoft and my 7 years before that actually out in the channel, and give you a little bit of context of where I see things going. But before I go into that level of detail, I thought it might be good to share a little bit of a history with us, a little bit of a roadmap of where we've been. David talked a lot about the importance of our partners, and I've firsthand witnessed that over the last 6 or 7 years. Now, this is my third tour of duty, as I call it, working for David, and I've absolutely loved it. There's a reason that I've worked for him 3 times. I started the journey with him back in the U.S. sub in 2006, 2007. Then went into the Dynamics product team, came back to Worldwide SMB, then went into Worldwide Partner Group, and now here I am again working for him on U.S. capacity. And all along that journey, we've kind of dove in and out of working together on growing the cloud business in partnership with you. And the amount of growth has been staggering. And I remember when I first took the role working for him, we were coming out of BPOS and moving into the brand of Office 365. And at that time, it was about a $50 million business. And over the next 3 years, this was 2011 to 2014, we actually grew the business worldwide in SMB alone from $50 million to $1.4 billion. If that was its own company, if cloud and SMB worldwide were its own company, it would have been the third fastest in the history of the world to reach $1 billion. And the two that beat it, Priceline and Groupon, both plateaued at about $2 billion, but we've continued to accelerate beyond that. And the reason for that growth is entirely because of the folks in the room today. Our partners did a tremendous job in the early going, picking up and embracing cloud and going out and really capitalizing on the opportunity that was there. And the good news is we're not going to be like Priceline. We're not going to be like Groupon where we have this plateau effect. We've continued to see incredible growth. There was a story that was published just recently by Forbes. It discussed and overviewed in great context the cloud wars and the vendors that are out there. And I know that Amazon likes to get the darling in the press about being the biggest cloud provider, but the fact of the matter is our channel has partnered with us to drive an $18.5 billion revenue stream for this company, which is actually about $1 billion larger than Amazon. So when you look at the totality of what you're driving in the cloud and working with us on, you guys have created an incredible acceleration in the market and redefined how we built our business, as well as what many of our customers are doing today. And the mix, or where we're driving our revenue together, has changed as well. We started back a few years ago, and I only had data in my arsenal that went back 3 years. I'd have to ask for a little bit of help to get further back, and I ran a little short on time. But I think the U.S. SMC, small, medium, and corporate, transformation has been tremendous. We went from about a $900 million business to somewhere closer to a little better than $3 billion in the last 3 years. And the cloud mix has really shifted as well. We drove about 20% cloud mix in that window to now about half of our business comes from the cloud. And these folks in the room today, this portfolio of partners that we have, about 1,100 partners in my portfolio today, we're actually driving closer to 50, 55%. So we're actually doing a little bit better than the curve, but there's plenty of room for us to continue to accelerate. And you can see that continued growth in what happened in the Q2 timeframe, right? We continue to see great opportunity. This was from our most recent analyst call with Amy Hood, where she walked through the growth rates related to each one of our core products, or our 3 big clouds, right? You look at Office 365, it's still growing tremendously, right? North of 40 points at this point in time is amazing with how many partners are transacting it and how many customers we have actually on the service today. Dynamics remains incredibly healthy. I think this is going to continue to uptick as we go forward and we launch all of the new SKUs and new products related to Dynamics. So this is a potential tremendous opportunity for our channel to continue to grow here. And then Azure. Azure's been the fastest growing service we've had for quite a while now. We're growing at nearly 100%. We're about 108% inside of this portfolio, so you guys are embracing it and doing a great job with it. Now, the one thing, though, as we start to think about Azure and kind of drilling into that in a little more detail, the thing that bothers me, it keeps me up at night just a little bit, is our revenue mix. When I look at the U.S. business today, it's a tremendous business now. Azure, as a matter of fact, is now almost 3 times the size of our SQL business and more than twice the size of our Windows Server business. Right? So it's a huge business for us. The challenge at this point, though, is where the revenue is coming from. Our partners are starting to embrace it. We've got about 4,000 partners that are transacting Azure on CSP right now here in the US. But we still see too many customers coming to us with a credit card. 72% of our revenue year to date in Azure comes through the web direct, or a customer coming to us and wanting to buy it. That's down from about 80% 6 months ago. The reason this is concerning for me is, first and foremost, I'm a partner guy. I come out of the channel, I want you guys to thrive and be highly profitable. But more important, selfishly for Microsoft, customers that buy from partners spend more money. They last longer in terms of the relationship, and this is particularly true with Azure. Okay, so we got a lot of momentum here behind it, but there's more opportunity for us to capitalize on it. Customers are hungry for it. If it's not actively out on your website, not something that you're talking about and you're promoting into your client base and into every new prospect that you're talking to, we're missing an opportunity here. Okay, and we want to partner with you on how to do that. Now, I also see a number of challenges coming to fold for many of our partners today, and these have been similar challenges over the last 2 or 3 years, but they continue to be something that we've got to find our way around. And this is where I see the partner development managers, the PDMs in the room, helping you to kind of navigate through this. The first one, and I've been talking about this for a number of years now, I remember when we wrote an ebook on it when I was in the Worldwide Partner Group, is this concept of separating yourself from the herd. Here in the US alone, we've got almost 10,000 partners that are transacting on CSP. Right? So if you start to think about what that means to a customer and how they're starting to be smarter and how they're going out and doing research. Remember, 65 to 70% of the buy cycle happens before they ever talk to you. So at the end of the day, if they see the same thing, the same message out on websites, or if they're searching for things and the same type of information is coming back, we're going to have a very crowded space, and we've got to find a way to create differentiation in our market. I'm glad Mark's going to spend quite a bit of time on this today, but it's something that I spend a lot of time coaching our partners on. The second piece is where the buyer is today, or who controls the budget. And IDC did some research with us recently, and we found out that 61% of the overall IT budget is now fully controlled by the BDM, the business decision maker. And they fully influence another 20%. So what that means is 81% of the budget is now owned by somebody or influenced by somebody outside of IT. And their needs are different. The way we have to engage with them is different. We've reoriented our entire sales force around this. For those of you that were at Inspire or at the Digital Transformation Academy that we had in Las Vegas, you heard how we've reoriented around 6 key industries at this point. And we're going to build more as time goes on. It's because of this issue, because we realize that the people that are spending the money today are not the ones that were spending the money in the past. We've got to change our pitch. We've got to change our offering. We've got to think a little bit differently about this. And then the last piece is a very hot topic right now, and everybody's heard about it. It's kind of an amorphous subject, but this concept of digital transformation. And the reality is this is what's keeping most of the CEOs in the Fortune 1000 awake at night. And that's going to work its way down through all of the different levels or segments in the market. The reality is, too, this is where a lot of the companies that we deal with are going to disrupt larger entities. This is why, companies like Uber and Harry's Shave Club, and I can go down the list. These were small businesses when they started. There are a lot of the customers that you're talking to today. They have, even if they've been around for a while, they have the ability to disrupt. And we have an opportunity as partners to go out and spend time with them, reorienting their business model and coaching them through this transformation and simply using technology, not at the forefront, but as something that is a tool for enablement or a platform for enablement to actually make this happen. And I think this is going to be the biggest stressor on our channel today, is having the aptitude and the knowledge to actually go in and work with the board of directors or the C-level executives to completely transform everything that they do and bring technology in as a way that happens, as opposed to the inverse of, let me just solve one little problem for you, or it's time for you to renew or to upgrade. That's not the conversation anymore. The conversation is about how you're going to help me to stay profitable and be successful. So much so that 4 out of every 10 CEOs, according to a recent study, are actually paranoid about losing their job for this very reason. Okay? So it's something that we've got an opportunity around to go in and really help them with. And this is where David did a great job of highlighting the market opportunity that exists for us today. To me, I think about the history of what we've had an opportunity to go after with all the client side, the PC side, as well as the initial phases of the cloud, as something that David articulated very well. It was finite. We had a certain number of people that we could go after, but with this new opportunity, not only does it create an infinite potential for revenue, but it does so for profit as well. Because as you start to think about projects beyond something like deploying Office 365 or migrating mailboxes over, and you start to think about things that are a little bit more obscure. You start to think about building analytics opportunities for customers, or the things around machine learning. This is where the heavy weight on the revenue streams is more towards the things that are more profitable. There's more project services, managed services, and even IP that can be built there. We're not going to be dependent on what Microsoft or another vendor is offering you in terms of margin and channel incentives. You're going to be able to control more of your own destiny the further you go out in the spectrum and focus more on the things that create recurrent revenue streams that are your own and higher margins for you as well. So I'm really excited about what this means for the profitability of our channel. But I want to take just a minute and make a little bit of sense of it, because when I look at that first diagram, it's a little bit overwhelming, and I want to be able to kind of stitch it together in such a way that makes sense. And for me, and this is kind of my own thought process, I try to rationalize and simplify things whenever I receive them, is I try to align this in a simplistic way. And for many of you, it's going to be thinking about your strategy as a bullseye. What am I really good at today? What can I use as my foothold or my land grab to go out and attract customers? For some of you that are Dynamics partners, it's going to be leading with Dynamics 365. Others, it's going to be around landing collaboration through SharePoint or potentially migrating mailboxes over to Office 365. But I want for you to think about that being your anchor or your core, something that starts the conversation and then bulges out or goes from that point forward to create new opportunities for you and start to bring these other elements in. Doesn't mean you have to do them all today. You can bring or add one of these rings of the bullseye slowly over time. This could be a 3 or a 4-year journey, but I want for you to start thinking about how we get to that point over time. Okay? Now, as we do that, to me, the best way to make sense of it is to think of it in kind of slices of the pie. There's 137 4-digit SIC codes that exist out there today. And the biggest mistake, and I mean the biggest mistake I see partners make from an overall health, growth, and profitability standpoint is opportunistic behavior. Meaning, customer raises their hand and says, I need this, and we go chase it. Or somebody comes in as a referral, and I've never deployed something in a hospital before, but I'm going to go figure it out. Well, at the end of the day, that creates all kinds of challenge and stress in the business, and it makes the client roster kind of look like this. We've got projects all over the place, and what happens is we can do it all, but we may not be our best at it all. We've got to find a way to change and transform that. And there's all kinds of challenges for our business model that comes as a result. And the first that I see so often is that, sorry, this built the wrong way, is that the reality is the message gets lost. And I want to give you just a few examples. I recently pulled this for a session I did in Chicago. I saw the roster of partners that were coming, and I went out and I looked at their websites. And this irrelevance of message, this blandness of message, is something that I see pervasively across so many partner websites. So as you start to kind of read through these, you can see they all look the same. And if I mentioned before that 70% of the buy cycle is happening before the prospect ever talks to you, and they're looking through your website and there's no differentiation, where's the place that they go? They all go to price, right? So how many of you, and I've been saying this for 10 years now because it's been true, but how many of you are charging the same thing for your daily or hourly charge out rate or your managed service that you've been charging for 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even longer years? The reality is, without differentiation, we can't justify a higher price point. And if we can't justify a higher price point, every year the cost of labor, the cost of the impact on SG&A, all these things are coming in and eroding away profitability. We've got to find a way to solve for this. So in my mind, the way that we solve for this is creating specialization or going after a vertical and then starting to really get good at that, starting to find ways to leverage experience and knowledge in such a way that we can exploit it, right? So you think about companies that are performing in an opportunistic way, not only do their websites tend to struggle in terms of their message, but the sales cycles, they're elongated, right? The sales cycle for so many partners I talked to today is somewhere in the range of 3 to 6 months, right? You think about how things are transforming and how now the business decision makers control the budget. They want to move faster in most cases. This is where we've got to think about how we shorten this down. And the metric that's related to this is direct sales costs as a percentage of revenue. And this is something that I look at pretty closely whenever I'm meeting with partners. And what you're trying to do here is you're trying to take the cost of the individual, maybe their $100,000 resource, and divide that by the revenue that they drive to your business every single year. And most commonly, this is in the range of 18 to 20% amongst partners, but the best performing ones, the ones that have specialization, the ones that go through the same sales process over and over again in a repeatable way, they're able to drive this down somewhere in the range of 8 to 10%. And the way that they do this is through that industry knowledge or that vertical knowledge to bring that in to be able to accelerate things as opposed to having to learn as they go through the process, right? And then as we think about the growth rates of our top performing partners out there today, you know, it used to be that we would look at our data and either a top line P&L would have revenue growth in the range of 15 to 20%, and that was considered strong in the market. And it's still fine, it's still okay. But the reality is I see the majority of partners that have the healthiest P&Ls, and I'm talking EBITDA and the ratios are in the ranges of somewhere between 12 and 18%, and I've seen them as high as 26%. Generally, their growth rates are north of that 30 points. And the reason for that is they have moved their business model over towards an area of specialization where they can create process and create repeatability and do things very quickly, but they've also pivoted away from depending on the product resale. So often when I sit down with partners that are coming out of the VAR space and starting to build this, this is where the lack of control over their own destiny comes in. And if 50, 60, 70% of your P&L is tied to what is associated to a vendor resale, you're always going to be victim of what that vendor is going to be driving in terms of margin or in terms of the rebates. You've got to find ways to move that over and start to capitalize on that. And when you do that, and you start to think about things like managed services in your own IP, those are recurrent in nature, right? Those are what create that high level of growth for your business. For example, you know, if you're a $5 million or I don't care if you're a $1 billion reseller, no matter what you sell this year, you start back at zero when that calendar resets, right? Whereas if you have recurrent revenue streams that are your own, like managed services or packaged IP, you basically bank that and start the year with that next year so long as you can manage churn, right? So that's a big piece that we see, and we've got to find ways to leverage that. And as we think about the value of companies, there's something that's really been very active in our channel over the last 24 to 36 months is acquisitions, both on the buy side and sell side. We have a lot of folks that are aggregating and rolling things up, and we have some folks that are exiting the business and moving on, whether they're entrepreneurs or whether they are simply looking for now is the right time for them to exit and do something different. And the valuation multiples have been interesting to kind of watch. In the historically, they've been around 2 to 4 times EBITDA, but what we're starting to see is partners that have, not starting, we've been seeing this for some time now, so in the range of 10 to 14 times EBITDA as the valuation multiples, and it's all because they have a defensible strategy, because they're specialized. Nobody else can come in and do the same thing they can with ease. They're going deeply into their accounts and selling more than just something like Office 365. And they've created people and process in such a way that you can see the owner have their exit and that business can continue to flourish. But the genesis of all this starts with creating that durable competitive advantage and thinking about specialization, landing that anchor tenant or that anchor client in such a way that you can get things started and then moving outwards across that bullseye that I talked about before. Without that and that continued opportunistic behavior, you're always going to be stressed with challenges related to direct sales costs, with the effectiveness of your marketing, with the lack of process being there, and the business is going to perpetually perform probably in the range of about 10 to 12 points of growth at most, with about 5 to 8 points of EBITDA. That's what my experience is with this. All right, so with that said, there's an exercise that you can do with your PDM, and this is something that I'd love to see each of the folks go back and do over the next 30 days. The reality is most of you have a latent specialization in your business. This is kind of one of the key things I find so often, is that if you go in and you look at your client roster and you actually pull down the names of the customers and go through the exercise of appending that information with the 4-digit SIC code, Typically what you'll find is 25 to 30% of your clients reside in the same 4-digit SIC code. It just happens to be the way it is. I don't have an explanation for it. It just kind of is that way so frequently. It's not always the case, but it is generally what I see. And so what I do from that point, and what you can do with your PDM, is without leading the witness, actually go out and have an interview or a discussion with your sellers and with your services folks to talk about what are the projects that we sold with the greatest efficiency? Which ones were the most fun? Which ones did we deliver in the most interesting ways? And you'll see this correlation between those types of customers and those types of feedback from those folks so often. And it's because, from a seller standpoint, they start to build confidence as they sell the same thing over and over again. And they start to feel like, wow, this is moving faster. I know how to answer all the questions. I'm not having to do all the research. I'm actually proficient at doing this. Now, this is actually another lever that I've talked about a lot over the last 3 or 4 years that you can actually pull to drive down direct sales cost. As you start to build specialization into your business and you think about selling the same thing over and over again, the dependency on a very expensive resource is no longer required, right? You can actually see this transpiring in our channel today. One of my favorite stories that I've told a million times is Perspicuity out of the UK. Long story short, they sold 2,000 deals in the first couple of years of selling Office 365. Average age of their seller was 18 years old. Beyond that, too, I've seen partners that have, instead of hiring these really expensive sales resources, they have realized that if I go vertical, what's more important is actually knowing that business, the domain of that business. I can teach them the technology, but understanding that business is what's more important. So we've seen school teachers and former car salespeople and real estate agents and attorneys time and time again come into our space, right? So this is something that we've been talking about for some time, but it's just something I haven't seen enough of here in the U.S. just yet. It's mainly been overseas. As a matter of fact, the UK followed Perspicuity's advice, and there's now over 4,500 apprentices in that age group of 17 to 22 working in 3,000 partners in the UK today. I have no idea why we haven't done it here to that degree yet. Okay? This is your future. It doesn't have to mean that that's your only sales force, but this is your future bench of people that can come in, right? And I'm happy to have a side conversation with anybody on the details of how they did it. So sorry, I took a little tangent there. The last piece is, after you look for those first 2 components of the client roster and the density of clients in that 4-digit SIC code and interview your folks, the next thing you want to do is go through the projects that were in there. And what I'm hunting for there is a couple things. I hate when we do the same thing twice and invest a cost against it. Why invest human labor to do the same thing twice, right? So what we're looking for here are projects where we can actually take and create templates or IP that can be packaged up. And a lot of times when we talk about packaged IP, everybody thinks that we mean this big monolithic ISV that exists out there. I'm not asking you to go recreate Sage or some other big vendor that's out there today. What I'm asking is to take either a SharePoint template that you've created and resell that, or use a tool like Nintex or LiveTiles or one of those types of products that you can build on top of, and then go resell that over and over again. And it can be everything from $1 or $2 per user all the way up to something more expensive. I mean, I've got companies that, like Power Objects, created 32 little individual Power Apps that they charge a very low price for, a couple bucks per user per month for, all the way up through Restaurant 365 that's charging over $100 per user per month for their specialized accounting and CRM package for the restaurant industry. Anywhere in that continuum is fine, but I want for you guys to find the things that are going to generate more profit for you, right? All right, so that actually lends us to a good topic, which is my expectations of a PDM and what I think the relationship, the frame of the relationship should look like. And for those of you that may have not had the deep conversation of the background of your PDM, it's a very interesting group of individuals that we have. One of the main reasons I took this role about 18 months ago was I had worked closely with, at the time, the Central Region PDMs and thought very highly of them. One of the best set of folks from around the world that I've seen in terms of history and ability. And at the end of the day, these folks they're really focused on your growth. This is, as a matter of fact, that's how they're paid. And I'm going to actually show you here in a minute their compensation plan, just to drive transparency and clarity into actually what motivates us. And their performance of their portfolios, that rolls up to me. So at the end of the day, I'm paid on your performance as well. The majority of my paycheck from a variable compensation standpoint comes on your growth. So this is why we're so vested and interested in helping you be profitable to reinvest to fuel that growth of the future. But I will also be honest with you. My standpoint on this, and I'm very direct about this, and I've coached my team on it, I see each one of my PDMs in the same way I would if they were investment bankers. They have a portfolio of stocks or portfolio of investments that they make, and their job at the end of the day is to grow that. That's what we're remunerated on and held accountable to. We have the latitude to move partners in and out of those portfolios on a quarterly basis. And so what we're looking for is the ability to create long-term growth. Now that doesn't mean that if you have a bad quarter, we're going to take you out of the portfolio. That's not at all what I'm saying. We look at things on a much longer-term horizon for that. And I'll go through kind of the art and science of how I look at that here in just a few minutes. But we are very much committed to your growth, but want to make sure that it's a bidirectional relationship of value in that regard. Now, your average PDM in here, they've been here for a little more than 9 years. So these are not green folks. These are people that have been around Microsoft. They understand how to navigate all of the different programs and resources that we have. They have great relationships with product groups, with marketing organizations. They know how to help you find the assets that can create growth and investments in your business long term. I've got a number of folks that have come out of the channel like myself. Some have actually owned their own companies. They can help you go through some deep conversations about how to grow your business. And I actually see them, the moniker that I put on them is I see them as adjunct board members, at least adjunct senior leadership team members of your company. But what I see so often, or not so often, what I see a little bit too much, is that we're missing the opportunity to leverage their experience and their knowledge in that regard. The thing that I tell them, and this is where I kind of talk about the 80-20 rule of spending their time, is, and I'm playful, I'm direct, so don't take this as kind of a rude statement. I don't intend it that way, but I think you're missing an opportunity if you see them as a gopher. They're not somebody that's going to just go chase dollars or programs. Sorry, we'll help you. I know our incentive programs are broken. I know we've got issues there, don't get me wrong. But if you're relying on them to go spend the entirety of their time to chase a check for you, you're missing an opportunity. We'll do that. We'll help you. We'll get other people to help us to track that stuff down. But the conversation should come back to, hey, Justin or Ava or Regina or Bruce, am I investing in the right way? Am I maximizing? What are you seeing from other partners out there today? What are your thoughts on this market? How should I be thinking about this 2, 3, 4 years down the road? If you're not having that conversation with your PDM today, you're missing an opportunity. Okay? So I want to make sure that we're focused on that. And I see them as the quarterback to a lot of assets for you as well. They are the center point of what we call the pod. And the pod includes a number of different roles. We have a partner technical strategist. So if the PDM is the adjunct senior leader or board member, the PTS to me is the adjunct CTO of your company, the person that can come in and really help you to paint the picture technology-wise what the long term is going to look like. They can also help you to plug into the resources that are best available to help you to be technically prepared to deliver these solutions, but behind them as well is an arsenal or an army of swarm resources is what the term we use. But basically it's a group of technical assets, everything from cloud solution architects to very deep product specialists that can come in and help you to build your AI practice or your machine learning or you name it kind of a practice. They have access to these individuals that can come in and really, really go deep with you. And then certain PDMs today, right now we're still landing the full complement of these resources from around the country, is what we call an inside PDM. And these folks are based in Fargo. We've got about half our team have these resources today. The model is working well, so we're going to invest in it more as we go forward, probably as we move into FY19. But these resources are there to help you on a more programmatic basis, to help you to think through some of the programs in detail, things like Azure Everywhere or MPN competencies, those types of things. But these groups, these teams, they're intended to be there to support you and to help you to think about your business from a growth standpoint long term. Okay? Not just to go hustle after whatever issue or fire drill that we have today. I do want to stress that we're still there to do that to help you there. But if you're over pivoting their time on that, you're missing an opportunity. I ideally am striving for 80% of our time is to think with you strategically. 20% is to help you to get around some of the issues or blockers or program nature things that we have. Okay? And what we have, because you can see CSP is the future of our business. If anybody has any questions on this or confusion on this, at the end of the day, Mark Stewart and I will do a Q&A panel. I'm happy to address any questions that you have there. My last role my team, gentleman on my team led CSP at the time. This is our future. This is where we're going. You can see our unwinding of Advisor in terms of incentives. Software is starting to make its way onto CSP with Windows, and other things will be coming in soon. That will mean Open has less of a presence with us. MPSA, we took Azure out of MPSA. You can kind of see the reading of the tea leaves of where we're going. CSP is the future. It's powered by something that we call the Universal Store that runs our retail stores, Xbox, everything that our Windows Store today as well. This is our one universal platform that we will use across Microsoft from a commerce standpoint in the future. And for that reason, we're moving as much as we can, as quickly as we can, over into CSP. But we want to do it in a natural way, and we realize certain elements take time. All right, so what I'd like for you guys to think about as we go forward with the PDMs, and I talked about that 80-20 rule and how they're spending time with you. And Mark's going to go through this in detail a little bit later on, but I just want to kind of give my slant on it, or my kind of 2 cents on it. And the first element of this is, to me, there's a 5-step journey that we go on together. And it's almost a cycle that we go on it and we come back and we reinvent again and again and again. And the first piece of this engagement together, and this should start next week, to be honest with you, is coming in and doing a partner assessment. We've got a great tool that walks through all aspects of your business and will actually tell you where you stand in terms of a good, better, best, or here's an opportunity for you to improve area. It spans marketing, it spans services delivery, it spans everything so that you can understand where you can find more profitability in your business. Leverage this tool. It is built on the best practices of some of our best consultants from around the world that have gone out and engaged with well over 1,000 partners to build these insights. They've torn apart their P&Ls and understand what the major growth levers are, what the things that can preclude growth are, and have actually built this tool to help you quickly identify where the issues are at. And sharing that information with the PDM in a transparent way puts us both in a position for us to offer the maximum amount of help and assistance. Be transparent with them and help them to empower you to make sure that we're plugging into the right areas. They're going to know best practices. They're going to know insights from other partners. They're going to know things that I've shared with them or that Mark and other consultants have shared with them that you can use yourselves to continue to grow. Then they're going to walk through and help you to build your go-to-market offering. So as we think back to the slide I talked about earlier about how do we think about specialization, and maybe we're going to attack a vertical because we've gone after that, we've gone through that exercise, that Venn diagram exercise, and we found a latent specialization. They're going to help you to create what that offering looks like. And Mark's going to go through in great detail how to actually do this. So I'm excited for him to spend some time on that. But more importantly, as you build that offering out, we're going to actually be able to do a what-if analysis with you and sit down and show you over an extended period of time what the impact will be on your P&L, right? It'll look at things like cumulative cash flow. It'll look at gross margins on the different revenue lines, the sales cost that goes into it. It's a very detailed analysis to help you on that decision and on that journey. Then we have a planning workbook, and this is, to me, I always say that building or executing a business without planning is no different than gambling. This is where they'll sit down with you and actually work through building a very pragmatic business plan to help you get started, not only in the short term, but over that long term as well, and how you create that durable competitive advantage that I talked about earlier. Along with this, though, and David hinted at this, is a great 30 to 60 to 90-day plan that's actually broken down by role in your business. Now, you guys in the audience today, you're all owners and CEOs and C-level executives of your company. This is my biggest ask of you today. Just don't come sit through this and then go back and do nothing. Take this, use this as a tool right here, and spend some time going through it. We've actually broken the 30, 60, 90 down by role and functional area in your company. There's a section in here for you. There's one in here for your services and delivery lead. There's one for your marketing lead, one for your sales lead. And we've curated the best tools, the best assets, the best resources that we have in this simple to follow plan. And there's not more than 1 or 2 things that you have to do per week. So this shouldn't be an over laborious thing for you. Now, for those of you that are CEOs in the room that lead your company, I'd love for you to act as the change agent, to sit down in your business on Monday mornings and have a staff meeting with your functional leads and actually go through the progress that was made the week before and then set them on their journey. Great, you accomplished this. Here's your next task. This is what your next week needs to look like. Invite your PDM to those meetings as well. They'll help you through it. They may be able to answer some questions that your team is asking or be able to point you in a direction that maybe you weren't thinking about before. Okay? All right, so I want to close with kind of my mindset around the art and the science of what I look for in partners that I want to bet on in the future. Okay? And I break it down purposefully into this concept of art and science because there are things that are predictors of growth and there are things that are proof points of growth. And I like to look at both of those things. And the dimensions that I look at in terms of science are twofold. I look at the cloud mix that the partner is driving into their business, and I look at the revenue growth. And these are things that show me empirical evidence that they're on the right journey or the right path towards success in terms of future investment as well. And I put these numbers in here, 35% and 70% for a reason. Now, this isn't an always fact, but it is a trend that I see quite a bit. When I see partners move further to the right on this axis here and have higher levels of cloud mix, so often what I see with it are increased levels of growth. And it's back to those points that I made before because of the recurrent nature of the revenue for not only the product resale, because Office 365 generates a revenue stream, so does Azure, but there are generally more things tied to managed services and IP on the side of it. I tend to see partner businesses continue to thrive over time. It doesn't mean they don't go through hiccups or cycles. I've seen plenty of partners with 98% cloud mix but 10% growth. They go through cycles as they reinvest, but more often than not, these are our high-performing partners. And the further you move out in these boxes out here, this is where we're going to invest time and resources and other things that continue to grow the bidirectional nature of our relationship. Right? This is what I see as kind of my performing indicators. There are more that I look at, things like number of cloud products sold or acceleration on an individual practice, but this is where I start my journey in investigating a partner's performance. From that, I look at the art, and this is where it's harder for me because I do have regular conversations with partners. I try to make it a point to talk to 2 or 3 in any given week, but I don't have the level of intimacy in the relationship that PDM does with you, where they know your business extremely well because they work with you inside and out. I kind of rely on them to help me to understand this, but at the end of the day, they are empowered to make their decision as to whether or not a partner is or is not on their portfolio. But what we look at are a number of factors. We look at, is this partner creating differentiation, or are they going to be a Me Too option for customers? Are they creating a path for themselves that's unique, that's going to allow them to create separation, growth, and profitability over the long term? So that's the first piece. The next is, are they investing in marketing today? And are they marketing in the right channels, whether it be social or digital? And then beyond that, are they reaching the right audience? Are they going after those business decision makers that control and influence so much of that budget? Or are we still in an IT speak stance and our website is generic and we're investing too little in marketing? Most of the partners today that are growing kind of on this right over here of 35% or more and seeing really good profitability, they're investing 5, 6, 7, 8% of their gross revenue back into marketing. Partners that are investing 1 to 2% are not. So if you're not investing to that level in marketing today, that's an area that I'd emphasize to focus in on. And to do so in a way that is relevant to your audience, which Mark is going to go through in detail, and to do so in the right channels. And the biggest thing that I look for too, it's not that Microsoft doesn't want to help you and that I don't want to help you, but I want to know that when the rainy day comes and there's a period where maybe there's an offer that's not in market, or for some reason they don't allow us to have programs like Azure Everywhere. I'm a little too paranoid, but let's say it happens. I want to know that you're self-sustained, that what you see from us in terms of investments is gravy, that at the end of the day, you're going to be able to grow your business on your own. Okay? So that self-sustainment piece is huge to me. That makes me want to invest more in you. Right? Because I know that you're investing in yourself, and it's not going to be something that I have to create a dependent type relationship with. Right? Then I look for folks that are constantly and consistently thinking about the next evolution, and they're working on the business and not just necessarily in it. And for those of you that have an equity stake in your business, when you think about the things that will drive your valuation down, this is the number one thing that will drive it down. is as an owner, that if we buy this company and the owner has an exit, whether it's immediate or over the long term, the business will collapse on itself. And so often I see too many of our owners that are spending their time involved in every single sales deal. They're involved in every HR hiring decision. They're involved in everything on a day-to-day basis, as opposed to spending more of their time thinking about, how do I make this scalable? How do I implement people and trust that can run these functional areas of the business? How do I put processes in place so that this thing can flourish on its own, right? If you're thinking about selling your company, whether it's now or it's in the future, make sure that you're very good at this. And then CSP. I look for CSP, leading with CSP every single time as being core, because this is the future of where we're going. And I get some of you that sell into the corporate account space or into the enterprise space. You've got some friction today with the enterprise agreement. I totally get that. And I'm fine with us navigating our way and working in that continuum for a period of time. That will change and evolve as time goes on. But for now, I can respect that. But when you are out there leading a deal on your own, I want for it to be CSP. Advisor is dead. Okay? We don't pay anything on it anymore. It is gone. We can't get out of that business fast enough. Okay? So we want to move that to CSP. And then the last piece that I'm looking for is I'm looking for the revenue composition, or the makeup of your revenue, of your P&L, to be weighted away from the vendor, whether it's us or you name the other vendor, and towards your own things like project services and revenue tied to managed services and IP. That's the area that I really want for the focus to be on, because those are more profitable, they're recurrent in nature, and they're something that controls your own destiny, okay? But as I mentioned before, with the PDMs and their skill, and myself, I'm all in with you as well. Not only because I'm passionate about it and because I'm paid on it, it's something that's, at the end of the day, as a Microsoft shareholder, I want to work with you very closely. I'm committed to us doing this together with you. So please do reach out at any time and make sure you're leveraging your PDMs in that right way. And so I'll close with this, and I was so proud to hear Satya at Inspire last year make this statement. And to me, it is so true, because if you think about, and he made the statement as well with the numbers and the detail here, if you think about our ambition and our mission statement, it's to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. We can't do that ourselves. If you think about doing the math aligned to that, there's about 110,000 of us. And to reach every person and every planet, every person and every organization on the planet, that means that all of the Microsoft people in the room would have to individually touch almost 70,000 people. But because we have 17 million people in our channel today, that number lowers to about 400 to 450. We can actually do this together. And that's what I love about working at Microsoft, and what I loved about being in the channel is the scope and impact and scale that together we have on the world. There's no other company out there that has the kind of reach of 110,000 people plus 17 million in the channel to actually go out and do something. It is real that we can go out and capture that $1.7 trillion target addressable market. We can absolutely go out and do it. There are enough of our partners and enough insight and power and intelligence and intellect in this room, as well as amongst your peers out there, that we can go out and accomplish this. Okay? So I want to thank you guys very much for your time. Thanks for investing, again, for coming and joining us.